have now reached the intersection where ideas, beliefs, and perspectives collide. So be free to be you. It's the Crossroads Podcast with your hosts, author, speaker, and transformational strategist, Barzini, and entrepreneur, empowerment coach, and tech diva, Dre Renee. If you're ready to talk love, business, politics, and everything in between, you're in for a ride. Welcome to the Crossroads Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? It's your man, Hunter Grant, your personal agent for change, making life easy, Barzini.
And I'm fempreneur extraordinaire, tech diva all day, Dre Renee.
And this is the Crossroads, where there's only one rule: be free to be you.
What up?
All right, y'all. So today's episode, and we've actually been waiting to do this episode for a few weeks. We discussed the topic in a production meeting a while ago, and we just had other episodes that we had to do before this one. But this one is called The Gas Chamber. And we have a special guest that's going to come on and unpack this topic with us. A really, really good friend of mine. We go back just as far as me and Dre, about 20 years. So I want to bring in one of the hosts of the Girl podcast that you guys can find on your favorite platforms, Erica Jordan.
I was over here having technical difficulty.
Welcome.
Unmute. Hello.
Welcome, Erica.
Y'all already see what kind of vibe we gonna be on. So
absolutely. How about you start telling us about your podcast?
So it's really, honestly, it's like walking into a room with real girlfriends, and that's what it stands for, GIRL, girlfriends in real life, because we are. And literally just being a fly on the wall of the conversation. There is no structure, because there's no structure in your conversation with your girlfriends. We literally are just talking about whatever is on our mind. It's no pop culture. It's not like the kitschy, oh, what happened today on Instagram. We might bring up something that might be just incredibly absurd, but it's really just conversation among girlfriends.
I love it.
You know, the good shit, the hard shit, the absurd.
And anal sex.
Oh, y'all get into it. Literally.
Listen.
I don't know how I ended up on that episode. But all I know is I got a call and was asked about.
We get a lot of listener letters, and that happened to be one of them. People asking our opinion, and you guys should unpack it one day. This lady was married for 11 years. Her husband decided he wanted to try something new, and that was the something new.
All right. So where can we find you?
We're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Anchor. We're everywhere.
The Girl Podcast. And I looked you on Instagram. It's GRLPOD. So
yeah, we have our new season starting in 2 weeks. So you can catch up to all the old shenanigans and be ready for whatever God has for you next.
I love it.
Yeah, so by the time this airs, they'll already be well into the season. So y'all make sure that y'all check that out.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So E. Diddy runs the city. Today's topic, we are talking about the gas chamber. And to unpack that for our audience, well, what I mean by the gas chambers, we're talking about toxicity in relationships, and that feeling that in a relationship where you're in this toxic space and breathing toxic air, and a lot of times unbeknownst to you, and people on the outside looking in can tell, but they can't necessarily save you because you're locked in this chamber. And there's so many different effects that are occurring during this time. And even after you have left the situation or the relationship or the environment that you were in, there's still residual traces of toxicity in your system that won't dissipate until you get the proper help or assistance that you need, and oftentimes medical attention. And we never know fully how it's affected us until we enter into other situations or other environments where this toxicity is now when it's in a foreign place, it has different effects. So you can be someone who enters into a place of happiness and it's foreign to you because that toxicity still exists and you can't breathe. It's almost like being from LA. You know how we are from LA, and we always say people from LA, for those who've not been to LA, we often say we don't trust air that we don't see. So that smog, it's like if you ever want to know what the air quality is, look for the Hollywood side, right?
Right.
And if you can see the Hollywood side, it's like, oh, okay, the air is clear
It's a
today.
good
People
day.
must not, yeah. But if you can see it, that means people on their way to work. So, and it's crazy. Like y'all already know that people on a holiday or a day off, you can always see it because ain't nobody on their way to work.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's but that's really what the gas chamber, what we're talking about. In romantic relationships, but in our personal relationships and familiar relationships, all these different aspects, our professional relationships where toxicity can exist, it all can be it can be just killing us, and we don't know. And so I guess my first question that I'll pose to both of you is, what do you think? Either do you think people enter into these situations because they're blind to a lot of the signs, they're walking into this gas chamber, or do you think that it may not exist yet and we might enter into these places and end up building the chamber, you know what I mean, and things change and we all of a sudden end up in the chamber? Like, how can someone recognize it, or is it even possible to recognize it, you know what I mean, until sometimes we don't recognize it till we in it, and it's hard to even escape. You want to get out, but sometimes you can't. Like, let's unpack that. What are your thoughts around those things?
That's a good question. As far as in the beginning, I think a lot of it boils down to determining what you think you can handle, right? Like if you look out and your thought process is, nobody's perfect, you're probably thinking, well, let me see if I can deal with this. And if the good qualities or the great qualities outweigh, the small thing that we might be dealing with. And so the metaphor that I used was like, baggage. And so is it, a duffel bag? Is it a backpack? Is it a big old, Samsonite? And so you're considering, well, it's just a backpack. I'll throw it on my back and I'll just keep trucking. And then one day, you open the backpack and there's a bomb inside, right? So it's really assessing in the beginning, maybe incorrectly, if it's something that you can handle, then you look up and your life has gone in a completely different trajectory. And then staying in it generally can come from familiarity and comfort, right? Like I know this person, or I know this situation. I can navigate this with my eyes closed. Is this something that I love? Hell no. But like, I know it, and it's better. It's like the devil versus the one that you don't. And again, can just turn your life completely upside down, not just in that moment, but like you said, for years and years to come, or situations that can come after.
Absolutely. I agree with you in the realm of thinking that maybe you can get past it or something of that nature. I know for me, we talked about it earlier, that kind of, you stay in a situation out of fear because of the unknown. It's not necessarily you're scared or you're apprehensive, but you don't know what next. You don't know what's going to happen if I make a change, because in order to change anything, you got to do something different. And if you don't know what that looks like, then you will stay stagnant or stay in a situation that's not necessarily healthy for you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so how do you feel like we can navigate through it? You know what I mean? It's I would say this, like, how do you even recognize it? Like, how does somebody get to that point? Is it somebody else telling you? Like, I think we've all been in situations to where we've gotten to a breaking point, but when you get to that point, it's like you've already been through the shit and back, and then, you know what I mean? So what do you think it is we're missing that's getting us to these particular ends?
Being honest. There's a lack of self-reflection and honesty in every situation, whether it's your friend, your mate, as in, your significant other, your family. When you lack the ability to really call a spade because you don't know what the next explosion, what is that going to cause? What is this going to unveil? You know what I'm saying? You might be exposing yourself. Because I exposed myself in this, because I'm in the process of just sifting through shit on my own. I do go to therapy. I'm changing some things in my personal life, and in looking at someone else, I had to really look at myself, and I realized, like you call it toxic, I'm an enabler on every level, not just in a relationship, but at work. I take on more duties than I need to, and I can delegate, or I overcommit. You know what I mean? Or I'm allowing so many people to lean on me, and I don't have the space for that. You know what I mean? And then that's facing a tough truth about yourself. Even in my relationship, I had to realize that the enabling that I labeled, because we label shit what we want it to be to make us feel comfortable, right? So enabling this person or enabling certain situations and okaying them, I became the gas in the gas chamber. I'm stifling this situation. I'm sucking the life out of it because now I'm unhappy. So now that I'm unhappy, everybody's unhappy.
That's some accountability for your ass.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's a difficult place to be. Sometimes, like, I posted a post on Facebook one time, and I was like, have you ever wondered whether you were prayed out of somebody else's life? Like somebody prayed you out of their life? You know, because we always talk about, like, we go on, so like social media is a place to where we escape accountability. So it's like so many memes out there, but we only pick the ones that pertain to our positive side. Or like, I guess I've always hated this. Like, imagine like being at church and the preacher's preaching, but the preacher's always preaching for the perspective that everyone in the congregation are the one that's right in whatever particular relationship that they're in. You know what I mean? And this is happening to you because God is trying to take you from here. When the reality is, no, you making some messed up decisions, and you the one that's actually, like, we never teach from that perspective. And then the whole congregation is yeah, you know what I'm saying, and they going home and it's pastor said it's you know what I mean,
it's the feel good gospel.
Right. And we do everything to escape accountability, you know what I'm saying, for ourselves. And so it's like, you can't on one hand say, nobody's perfect, but when it's time for you to be imperfect, it's never your fault for anything. You know.
That the reality of it is it's uncomfortable, right? But there's no growth in your comfort zone, so that's why we're stagnant. That's why we're in that a lingering gas chamber. That's why we have all this toxicity and all this other shit that's essentially bogging us down. Is because we'd rather be comfortable. Familiarity breeds content, right? Or at least that's what they say. You know what I mean? And instead of branching out and figuring out, okay, this is uncomfortable, I need to figure out what next so that I can escape that, I'd rather just act like it doesn't exist.
And some of us have to get to the point where the discomfort or the thing that we're in is worse than the discomfort, right? Like we don't want to feel either one of them, but sometimes, you know, that situation has to be close to unbearable. For some people, they have to get to the point where they're totally exposed or embarrassed, right? Like something happens that I can't hide it anymore. Passable. Right. And so I make that shift. And so you see that as well.
Yeah. I think it's also akin to, I think a lot of people consciously want to change or think they want to change, but so many people escape the effort or are scared of the work that it takes to actually change, to actualize that.
And the commitment. Right.
And the commitment.
That's the key.
Yeah.
You have to do the fucking work.
Right. And so I read this book called The Dip by Seth Godin. And there was a passage that was explaining, it was talking about winning, right? And so it used the example of this girl that was in law school and that was applying for a clerk position at one of the high courts in the nation, like one of the Supreme Courts or something like that. And he explained, like, there was like 47,000 students like graduated from law school, but only like 35 of them would get the position. And so many of them fell off. And then he asked the question, like, did she get it because she was so much smarter than everyone else, because she was better at it or anything else? He was like, that wasn't the case at all. What happened was people fell off from it because at some point they decided that the cost was too much. You know what I mean? Like the sweat equity, or the effort or the time or whatever it was too much. And I think when it comes to relationships and love and all this other stuff, we want this instant gratification. We want these ready-made partners and stuff like that. And we're not willing to do the work that it takes and put forth the effort to get those things that we say we want. And we're deciding that the cost is too high. And so we find things to complain about, like men are trash and women ain't this and blah. It's everybody else's fault except for ours in doing the work. And what I really discovered about relationships is this: it's like, if you think, I think about it like a pool, because I guess it was like there was a meme that said, "God, the dating pool definitely has pee in it," right? And I was like, well, maybe you should stop. Yeah, I'm like, well, maybe you should stop peeing it. Like, we never, And so it's like, rather than learn how to swim, we want to complain about the pool.
Mm-hmm.
But what we also do is we want the pool that we're in to be shallow. We want to be the only one in the pool. We want our pool that we're in to be a little wading pool so that we can be seen and chosen and found. But the pool that we're choosing from, we want that to be an ocean, because we want so many options. And so that's when we get to, I need all women to be this, and I need them to think like this, and I need them to all know how to cook, and I need them all love to do this and love to do that, and in the bedroom be this and blah 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 blah. It's not one. I need them all to be that, so it's easier for me to find one. You know what I'm saying? The one that I want, rather than like, hey, you know what? I got to go in this ocean. I got to learn how to swim. I might need some goggles. I might need a snorkel or an oxygen tank, or equip myself with all of the things that I need to go on this exploration in this vast ocean, on the mission to find one that has all those things that I need, that fits me best.
It goes back to what Drea said, though: comfortability, being able to feel safe. The shallow water is safe, and it puts you in the space to have to really deal with your shit. You have to deal with your trauma, your issues. Then you have to look at the other person. Like you said, it's always the other person in any relationship. You're like, oh, it's something that they're doing, when in reality, you got your own shit. You need goggles. You can't freaking swim. They're waiting in the deep end, waiting to get chose, so to speak. Meanwhile, you're trying to stay in that safe space.
Right. Just got your feet in.
Right.
Get your toes wet.
And yet before you have to first acknowledge it before you can work on it. So like a training that I'm developing now is called the 4 A's of change, which is acknowledgement, acceptance, assessment, and action. Right. And so you first have to acknowledge that a problem exists. You got to acknowledge something's off. So you got to escape that place of denial. And then when we learn into acceptance, you have to accept what the problem is. Like, it's identifying it and accept what it is. You know what I mean? Because some people are like, oh, well, you're this or that. No, I'm not, or that, or whatever it is. It's like, no, accept it, lean into it, embrace that. Then the assessment is, okay, well, what are the measures or the plans that I need to take to get out of this? And then the action is actually applying the effort to do that. So it's like,
that's a hard space sometimes, even after you acknowledge something that's happened, because it's almost a grieving process. You know what I mean? It's a grief of like, fuck, I really, you know what I mean? That's really me. You have to look at yourself in that realm of what could be a negative space. It could be an unhappy space, and some people don't even realize they're walking in depression, and they're sucking the life out of other situations because they haven't acknowledged that they're just really sad or very unhappy. For me, I've been so like bogged down with so much heaviness, but I didn't know until I acknowledged it. But accepting it is the hard part.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was having a thought while you were talking, Jason, maybe even the point before you got to your 4 A's. I was thinking, like, do I know, and maybe asking you guys too, do you know anybody that's in a successful relationship that does not have a healthy relationship with themselves? And I was like, I mean, and it might be hard for you to even assess that, like, but based on what you might know of the person, or maybe thinking about it the other way, like people that that are struggling in relationship with themselves or getting themselves to a place where they're happy, maybe they are not in a relationship. And the thought I was having, the reason why I asked that question was you were talking about, people's unwillingness to do the work. And I was thinking, well, if you won't do things for yourself, and let's just say, and I'll just use it for me, my personal example was I've been on the weight roller coaster for years, right? Like years, a little down, a lot of up, a little down, a lot of up. And so finally, like I had to get to the point where I was like, I am the most important person to me. And I am willing to do whatever it takes to consistently be down, meaning, down on the scale. I need to keep going down, 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 down. And I don't think anybody that's unwilling to do radical things for themselves will ever be in a position to do anything radical for somebody else or to be in relationship with someone else. So if you've been sitting on your business or your idea or going back to school or your health or your weight or repairing whatever relationship that's closest to you, maybe with your family or something like that, if you're not willing to do those things that make you healthy, happy, and whole, then we can forget about the other stuff. No, you're not going to do. You're not going to do any work for anybody else that you're not going to do for yourself. And that was kind of like the light bulb moment that I had.
Yeah. And to answer your question, I think it's impossible to have that kind of relationship with someone if you don't have it with yourself first, because you don't know what that looks like. Like someone who is not happy with themselves is typically looking for someone else to make them happy, or they're charging someone else to make them happy. And so you see a lot of these relationships where, oh, well, you're supposed to do this. I'm your man, I'm your woman. You supposed to. No, you see what I mean? And so we get into these situations to where, like, I've often described relationships nowadays. It's like when we talked about before on the X's and O's episode. It's like relationships feel like you commit to somebody and then you exchange these lists of things that you can no longer do and people you can no longer talk to and associate with because it's going to make them unhappy. And we subscribe to this. And I'm kind of like, that is just, to me, it's asinine. And maybe
it's dumb.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable because maybe somebody will say, okay, but that's not going that's not going to last.
Kind of like, so like, even like, there was a situation like where E called me. She was like, "Hey, can I, come stay on your couch?" But by this time, I was in a relationship, and so I could have said just like yeah, and not. But I was like, you know what, I don't care because you have been there before. But I got to call my girl and talk about it with her, because
absolutely,
you know what I mean. And she wasn't cool with it, and so now I got to call my friend and be like. And my friend was in need, and I want to help my friend.
Right. The reality of it is that that's not who you dated or who you were dating before you decided to get exclusive. I have these friends. I have this ability to help people. I have the fortitude to be social and be committed to you at the same time. But I think people put those expectations on other people because of their insecurity, because like you said, that other shit that's lingering, they brought it on over here to you as now you're dealing with it as if you caused it. You know what I mean?
That's good.
Yeah. And it's a lot to unpack. And I just think that our mindset and what we've seen plays a huge part, because there's a lot of trauma that I had to deal with. And, even my therapist had to question like my relationship with myself in relation to my purview of, women or about relationships in general. When I shared with my father one time, because I was sharing my feelings about my stepmother, and I make no comments about it. I said that I hate her, and I was blunt about that. And so my dad, because he kind of went back and forth with it, he was like, "Oh, you don't hate her," and he said that a few times, and "Oh, you need to forgive her," blah, blah, blah. And I got fed up with him one time. I was like, "Stop telling me how I feel." I was like, I'm a lot of things, but self-aware is I'm an extremely self-aware man. I was like, we can't talk about God and talk about, name this things and call it by name, blah, 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 blah. I was like, this is not something that I'm proud of. It is not something that I want. This is something that I struggle with. But my reality is I hate her. And then I started breaking down like all the reasons why. And I was like, I forgave her a long time ago, but that doesn't change how I feel. You got to remember, I was like, you made the decision as a grown man, almost 40 years old, to be with her. And this was your third marriage. I was like, you had to wake up with her, not me. I was 10 years old. I didn't have the choice. You see what I'm saying? I'm the product of this decision that you made. And while I don't blame you, I'm a grown man now. The burden is now mine to bear and to heal from. So I don't blame you. Because there's no way that you could have looked at her and said, hey, this is what she's going to do to my sons. There's no way you could have known that. But the reality is, this is now the burden that I have to bear and the trauma that I have to bear. And, and when I got done, he didn't mean it how we said it, but his response was like, damn, I didn't know you were so fucked up. You know what I mean?
The reality of it is, as parents, especially, our decisions do affect our children, and that's why we have to make a conscious decision to be right within ourselves. Because if not, our children are contemporary versions of us. We pass along our trauma, whether it's financial illiteracy, whether it is how we talk to people, whether it is how we internalize or compartmentalize. We pass that shit right on to our kids to have to figure out on their own, because we couldn't figure it out before we became parents.
Right. And you had that conversation with your dad recently, I'm assuming, or within the last few years. Like, you're an adult.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, I was an adult.
But you didn't just start having those feelings, right? And so I think that's important too. Like, kids, teenagers, they're aware then. And maybe they get a chance to express themselves by the time that they're adults. But how much toxicity, right? And then how many decisions are they making from that place before they're able to express themselves or before they get therapy? Like, I think there's room for parents, and I'm speaking as a non-parent, but I think there's room for parents, to really allow those spaces, even for their children, to be able to say, like, this sucks, and express it. Because I think, well, I know, just even being a child, looking back, that, I'm sure my parents thought there were some things that we didn't know or we didn't see or didn't, it's like, oh, they're not even thinking about that. But what we learn to do is lie. That's just bottom line. What I didn't closing my eyes to it. And so now that I'm thinking about what your question was at the very top of the episode, that's what it is. From a young age, we learn how to lie. We learn how to repress. We learn how to ignore. We learn how to block out, whatever, you want to call it. We learn how to do that in our own households. Or the households that, we kind of bounce between, depending on how your family operates. And so, of course, by the time you're an adult and you're in relationships, you have given yourself permission. You've taught yourself how to act like nothing's going on. So when you first see something that is not right, you're back in the place of, I didn't even experience
ignoring it. And you give yourself plenty of reasons to ignore it. You label it, you're trying to help, you are being understanding. You know what I'm saying?
Or like, everybody goes through it,
Yeah. And you said something so important about allowing your children the space. Because I feel like, for me, and it's because I've always been around a lot of teenagers and have kids around me, they're people, even though they're just young people. They're not mature as you are, but they have an opinion. They see shit for what it is.
That depends on who you ask. They actually is as mature. They just articulate it differently. They may not have the words.
Yeah. I have a 10-year-old and a 16-year-old in my house, and they have seen me and their father go through some things. And it wasn't until recently that I realized how it affected them.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So I had to sit them down and ask them, how do you feel? It was a hard conversation, but it was necessary because I needed to tell them how I felt. And it wasn't an inappropriate conversation like, oh, you telling your kids your business. I don't do that because children are not my homies. You know what I mean? But in the family realm or in a space that I needed to provide them a safe space so that they could learn how to communicate their feelings and learn that it's okay to feel that way.
Especially, do you have a boy?
Like, he's 16 and he is very open with me. We talk about everything. We talk about too many things for me, because he's, like I said, he's 16. Those close your door and I'll see you soon type situation. You feel me? But at the same token, he can come to me and say things to me because I provided that safe space. Because I don't want him to grow up and go be with somebody's daughter and can't articulate how he feels in a respectful and in a manner that is saying, hey, either you hurt my feelings or you going too far or that's not something I'm willing to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, setting that expectation for her later. And I don't want my daughter to feel like she got to mute herself because she's seen me one too many times walk away from a situation like, you know what, it's not worth it, when I could have turned around and just dealt with it. Because I can do that. I'm grown. I can say how I feel without being disrespectful. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So let me ask you this, because this is something that's like real interesting and can also become toxic, because we often say, like I'm hearing you say, like, I'll say it respectfully, but sometimes what we feel ain't always respectful.
Not respectful.
You know what I mean?
And it's not.
And so,
but I don't have to be disrespectful to
right,
tell you how I feel.
No, not necessarily. I don't mean like intentionally, but sometimes it's like. So, okay, so there was a conversation and somebody was like, it's not about what you say, it's the way you say it, right? And we typically say that, but it's actually pretty cliche. But I actually really thought about it, and I was like, that's actually bullshit. You know what I mean? And from my purview, it typically is geared towards men. You know what I mean? Because we're taught we need to preserve how women feel. You know what I mean? And
don't
so I
like
said this is like, well, I mean, I'm speaking from the guy point of view, but like. And it's a thing for us. But I was like this, if I have to cater my truth to support your feelings all the time, then it's not the truth. You know what I mean? And so if I'm saying this, like, if you say, baby, am I getting fat? Number one, you're not asking for truth, you're asking for validation, right? And so I'm like, you know what? Right. And so, you know what?
Hey, you knew that before you walked in here.
Bitch, you saw yourself already.
Right. Yeah, because
so the question really is, am I still attractive?
There you go. Hit the nail on. That's the real question.
What the question is.
So right. And so but right, no, okay. And then that goes to another conversation I was just having just yesterday as far as like communication. And I'm gonna tie that in real quick. So it's like okay, let me tie it in real quick and I'll come back to this.
All right.
You're saying, I know, you know what she's asking you, right? So I'm expected to respond in kind by what I know she's asking, not what she said, but what I know she's asking. So there was a post, and we talked about it earlier on the other episode, where women hate when guys say, hey, come through if you want. Instead of saying, and so these women was just going up. Why can't they just say, I want to see you? Why can't they just say this? And women are like for never saying what you actually mean, and we like have to filter through the words to get to the feeling. Like, y'all are known for not saying what you mean, and yet we are like, we say what we mean, but then we get penalized because we're not saying what you want us to say.
Yeah.
And so like the reality is this, I'm saying, hey, come through if you want. I literally mean come through if you want. I'm not saying, oh, hey, I want to see you. I wouldn't say it at all if I didn't want to see you. If I didn't want to see you, I wouldn't have said nothing. But I'm also trying to give you the choice. And I'm telling you, if you don't want to come through, it's cool. It's not a fight. Bet I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. You do what you're doing. I'm respecting your time, your energy, your space. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's this whole thing. And we jumped on the call and she was like, oh, that's bullshit. How come? And you want to change the lexicon of an entire gender to suit your narrative. And I kept telling her it's never going to happen. And so she kept looking at it from her purview and how she felt about it. And I was like, but you're not even being fair to him. When he's literally, she's like, no, it means this. And he don't really want to see you if you say, I was like, no, like, stop trying to tell us what we mean by what we say. You know what I mean?
It's a catch-22, Jay. Because by the same token, you could say, like, why should we have to change up because men are incredibly literal. What you see, what you say, for the most part, it is exactly like you say. You can't change them. They're going to be who they are. And what they say, 90% of the time, they genuine, let's say just a fuckboy and just a flat out liar, they mean exactly what they're saying. There's nothing wrong with come through if you want, because you're saying, hey,
and yet we're told that we don't know how to communicate.
And it's not that. The reality of it is we're emotional thinkers. And for me, what worked for me at 20, you can't say, like, at 20 years old, you tell me come through if you want. I'm listening to my all-stars and I'm on my way. But at 40, come through if you want. It's like, well, do you want my company or not? Because if that's what you want, say, hey, I was thinking about you. Come over. If I don't want to come over, then I'm not going to come over. So you don't have to give me permission to come.
But now, no. But so tie that into, am I fat? Because you're not asking me, you're not saying, hey, am I attractive? You're asking it, am I fat?
You are absolutely right on that.
I think it's, yeah, and it goes back to both sides trying to preserve themselves, right? Like the woman wants to hear that you want her to come, and then she gets to make the decision about, like, his desire is there, and then I'm in the I know, I'm acknowledging, right?
Yeah,
I'm in the driver's seat about whether I'm gonna match.
Yeah, y'all can tell I'm triggered by this.
Sit back.
I said,
go pour a drink.
Right.
Sexy mood lighting over there.
Sheesh, don't bite my head off.
No,
I'm
so hold
with
on.
you.
So this goes back to a story. This was that 7-year relationship, right? And there was this is by far the dumbest argument that I've probably ever had. You know what I mean? And so this is when I was back on the poetry scene going to the spot. So there was a spot that I went to on Thursday nights out in Fullerton, right? Every Thursday I'm going. And I used to talk about, oh, it's real dope and blah, 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 blah. So she was like, man, you always talking about this spot. Next week, I want to go. I was like, all right, cool, bet. Next week comes Thursday night. I call her up, hey, babe, I'm about to head to the spot. You still going with me? And she goes, oh, well, I just took a shower. You know, I really don't want to go. I was like, all right, cool. I'm out. And before I could hang up, she mind ninja'd me. And I didn't even know till years later that's what she did. So before I could hang up, she goes, unless you want me to go. And I'm like, what? I was like, you just said you didn't want to go, though. No, I don't want to go, but I'll go if you want me to go. And then I'm like, well, I don't want you to go if you don't want to go. If you want to go, I want you to go. But if you don't want to go, I don't want you to go. I want you to do what you want to do.
Oh, my Lord.
I'm tired already.
And listen, when I tell you this shit went on for an hour and we literally yelling and screaming. And at the end, I didn't realize I ended up not just fucking going because now I'm frustrated. And that's all she wanted anyway. Because I'm like, what just happened? Like, what? And so on both sides, we're like, it's just so simple. Why can't you just say you want me to go? And I'm like, why can't you just not go when you really don't want to, or say what you really want? And so I think where we fall short is this. It's the inability to recognize and compromise, right? So if you're saying, hey, I want men, you're saying, I want men to say this, but I want them to recognize when I'm actually saying this, right? And so if we're tasked with trying to identify a feeling and respond to a feeling that you are not directly articulating, even though that's how we communicate, then why on the inverse can't you just say what the fuck we say at face value? Come through if you want. And if you don't want, okay.
I agree. There's nothing wrong with what you're saying. But if I ask you about these double chins, nigga, you just act like you don't see them, okay?
Right. I love you just the way you are.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So back to the original point. So,
ladies, don't ask the questions that you don't want answers to, because I'm
definitely not that dude.
Pre this iteration of weight loss, I never asked my dude, am I fat?
I never asked either,
what do you? I didn't ask him first of all, because he definitely tells the truth about everything. And I considered how that would make me feel if he was just like, but also we were together.
Practice with the truth,
huh?
Well, I said you should have had lots of practice with asking me questions.
But we're not in a relationship. It's totally different.
It's a different desire.
Yeah. So, I didn't want to hear that from him. But at the same time, I was like, because I don't want to hear that from him, that's another reason that I want to get things together so that, I don't have to be afraid to ask him what he thinks about looking at me. Like that's crazy. But what I was going to say, when you were talking about the inverse and all those types of things, come through if you want. And then am I fat, meaning something. So yes, some women, I don't want to generalize. Some women, speak in riddles, right? But I am not like that. Okay. Like I hate riddles. You know why? I don't like decoding. Tell me what it is, or ask me.
Clear about yourself. That's goes back to everything we've been talking about. You're self-aware. You're happy with what's going on in your day-to-day. So you're not questioning. And not that no one else's opinion matters, because everybody wants somebody else to feel the way they feel about themselves. You know what I mean? But you already have that going for you. So because of that, you're like, I don't have to ask you if I'm fat, even if you are fat, because you're happy with whatever is going on with you.
Yeah.
You have to be happy before you can go and ask your man. How you look in this skirt? Because your homegirl gonna tell you look a mess.
Right.
You feel me?
Maybe.
Because
you might
if she your friend, if she your friend,
right? So then tell me that. So then why is it if your friend can tell you the truth and you're like, oh, that's a good friend, they told me the truth, but then you go home,
but not everybody's like that. You know how many women have fallen out because somebody told them the truth?
Not everybody.
My friends are not like that.
Mine either. But there are a lot of people. I mean, that goes to if you see, your friend's man out with somebody. Most women are like, that ain't none of my business, because the last time I tried to tell her, she jumped down my throat. So that not everybody's friendship.
Well, I'll tell you, my ex's friend definitely got on the phone when she saw me out with somebody. That was the night we broke. Listen, December 5th.
Oh no,
December 17th, 2005. December 17th, 2005. I know exactly.
Girl, let that go.
You know I'm a dates person. Right. And I wasn't like, I'm at the club and I'm sitting at a table with two of my homegirls. I didn't show up with them or whatever. Oh, but her roommate was surely on her roommate comes to the table like, hey, like, you catching me up or something. I'm like, hey, like,
you see me?
How you doing? You see me? I see you. I see you seeing me. Right? Listen, 5 minutes later, you don't be stepping out with no other bitch, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh.
But that's because she felt. That goes back to everything we're talking about. She cared about what somebody else thought because of how it made her look, because she wasn't secure anyways. And
listen, all I know is I got home. All my shit that was at her house was on my living room floor when I got home, because she had a key. But I mean, we were kind of on a decline.
I was about to say that had to be toward the end, because you definitely. I mean,
but it also goes into that communication, because it was so. I've told you about the conversation, right? The what are we doing conversation, and so that's how we were actually fine as a relationship. But I was trying to find my way, like, as a man and professionally, and so we had this conversation. I was like, listen, you stable in what you're trying to do right now. I got to start grinding more, because I need to get to the place where I want to be. Right. So that means I need to spend more time in the lab. So we're not going to be spending as much time together, because I need to be grinding more. And so she heard that with her head, but not her heart. And so it was like arguments ensued until one night we in bed and she goes, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, where are we going? Right. It's late night. I done had a long day. And so my response was, I can't even see tomorrow. Right. And so what I meant when I said that was, I'm tired. I want to go to sleep. I can't even think about tomorrow right now, let alone anything else, because I'm tired. What she heard was, I don't see tomorrow with you, let alone a future. And in her head, it was all this, like, she probably broke it. And we was together 7 years, but that was August of 2005. We was broken up by December, because that event happened.
So that's what
it was like a spiral effect.
That's what I was saying earlier. Like, you guys are literal. So there, you clearly you weren't speaking literally, but because we know that about you, we're taking that literally. So I can't see tomorrow to her was, I don't see tomorrow with you.
But I never,
come over if you want. Sounds like,
but I never specified, like, when I say I can't see tomorrow, like, the literal version is, no, I can't see tomorrow. Actually, no one can see tomorrow.
But the question in relation to the question, I know what you said is I can't see tomorrow. Yes, literally nobody knows the future. But in relation to the question, it sounds like, right? Like, I can't, what are we doing? I can't see tomorrow for us. That's what that sounds like, because you answered it. I mean, answered her question. Now, if you just said just randomly, like, oh, I can't see tomorrow, she might not have taken that any particular way, or might have just been like, neither can I.
Okay, so here's a question. What are y'all thoughts? So do you think that the answer is people need to learn how to hear?
I mean, she could have asked a follow-up question. I would have. I'd have been like, pause. What do you mean by that?
Mean?
What do you mean?
Right. I mean, hindsight is always 2020. So do you feel like we need to learn how to learn and accept how the other side communicates, or do you think it's incumbent upon us to speak in a way that the other wants us to speak? Like, which is easier? Which is that? You know what I mean?
Neither is easy.
Because for me personally,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't know. I would much rather. I would just much rather hear the way we hear. Like, if I'm tasked to learn how to hear your feelings through your words that you're not saying, like the feeling that you're clearly not articulating, I'm supposed to identify, recognize, and effectively respond to, then can you not be tasked with just taking what I said literally as I said it? It's a lot. I feel like y'all get the short.
I don't know.
She did.
She took it exactly how you said it.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in general.
In general, I don't know.
Like, forget that. I don't see tomorrow. To feel like hey, come through if you want to. Let's go there.
Oh, you gotta jump on it, sis. Is what it said.
Let me put my eyebrows down. My eyebrows got high for a minute.
He said, "Look, I don't even extend the offer,
girl."
Listen, y'all know me. I love hard. I don't love often.
Well,
but
I will say, was all that toxicity? Or did we cover it?
Girl,
listen, hold up.
This ramp, it was.
I think this whole episode might have turned toxic in itself. I don't know.
Don't call me for a week.
I don't know. I don't know. Hey, give me a call if you want to.
Listen, if you think about it,
let's meet back here for the next episode.
So if you want to, listen, I'm gonna be saying, I'm gonna call 3 women tonight and be like, hey,
oh shit,
you gonna get cussed out.
I ain't calling 3 women. I'm trying to call one though.
Oh, okay. Well,
one
I hope she slide on through. I guess
if she wants to.
WYD.
No. It's I ain't calling. Hey, and that's another one. Like, I don't do WYD, but you know what it mean. Like, women is really getting mad. Like, type the whole thing out. It shows effort. I'm like,
so that's a lot. That's semantics. That's dumb. I'm not a texter anyways, but when I do text, it's probably because I'm talking shit.
I'll text the shit out you.
Yeah, but my thing is, in retrospect, just in everything that we're talking about, it really always goes back to, what have you been through? There's a reason people act the way they act. There's not just, people don't just wake up and become a bitch, or they don't wake up and become unreasonable. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of it stems from toxic relationships, or hurt feelings, or, miscommunication, and something that could have been said in a conversation that was misconstrued via text. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just so many different things or facets to just fuckery. That's the only way I can say it. It's so much shit.
I will text the shit out of you.
And I don't mind texting. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I have bone loss in my hands, so I'm just not going to text you as often unless you've done something that pissed me off, because I just won't answer the phone. You can leave a voicemail.
I just think it's funny how I'll be like,
listen,
I'm going to let you hear it.
Listen, and I don't know how she do it so fast. I'll get a voice note, and you only get a minute, and before I'm done listening to that, another minute is gonna come through. I'm like,
because she got shit to say.
Oh, yeah, let me just go and get this off. And also, you might be busy, right? So whenever you are free, my thoughts are right there. Boom.
It's easier to text.
Exactly. That's why I do it, and it's more succinct. I don't have to hear all the stuff that I don't want to hear.
That's how I feel. I'm like, give me the baby without the labor. Let's just get to it. But I also understand.
I've heard that in my life. I think that's a first.
There you go. You can use that. Well, no, don't use that.
They don't call it labor.
I don't think. I was like, I don't think you want to use anything with labor, but yeah,
because men don't give birth. Exactly. We've already had a whole episode.
We've done that. Oh, no. But yeah, I think that's a general, with WYD and this thought, texting or whatnot. People they want the effort, right? And back to what you were saying, or we all were really talking about earlier, is that, the folks that want it generally aren't the most willing to give it. And so we know that, right? And so instead of us kind of going, we're not the ones that we're talking about clearly, but like what can be done? Like, people, they are who they are. Unless you're going to sit on Facebook with them and argue them down every day.
I don't necessarily think just empirically people are who they are. I don't think they have to be. And I think one of the major problems is, and we get into these debates like tonight, um, is because we are pushing for, advocating on both sides for an entire gender to change a behavior. And so what I explained to my friend, I said, this is a revelation that I had long ago. Because when we get into, relationship topics, you know how I get, like, i.e. tonight, right? You get passionate. And then part of it is like, because then you start getting triggered based on your experience. Like for me, it's triggering that people judge you without knowing your experience or why you are how you are, and then label you as such. So if I'm advocating for, I advocate for men and equity in relationships and stuff like that. And so people like, oh, you just hate women, da 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 da. And I'm and I told somebody one time, I was like, you know what? And there's no, you just hate black women or something. And I was like, you know what? But I told, and I had to tell her, and I had
confused.
Or you hear like, it was like, if you talk about color, someone said, oh, you like, because I'm darker, like, oh, but it was about like color, or someone said I look like I like light skinned long hair women, and like, if I do, so what? They still black, right? Like, I don't get it. Well, your mama was
Mexican.
But they was like, but they said something about like, how your mama. I was like, but how you know my mama not light skinned though? You don't know how my mama look.
Accurate.
You feel me? And so we don't look at someone's experience. But I told that woman, I was like, you saying that I hate black women, but let me give you a dose of reality. If I do, I've had every right to, because you don't know what my experience is. And I had to tell her, every trauma that I have experienced in my life, every abuse that I have been a victim of, has come at the hands of a black woman. Now, while my reality is no, I don't hate black women. I love black women. That's what I'm attracted to. That's what I will marry. That's what who my children will come through. However, you cannot discount my experience. My purview comes because I was raised by two men, my older brother and my father. I have a very masculine point of view. So while that's an advantage for me, I'm also crippled by it, because it is admittedly difficult for me to see a woman's POV, because I wasn't raised with one. It wasn't mama that, I'm saying, that's just not how I was brought up. I was born strictly male POV. So there's a lot that I have to learn and adjust in a relationship. I'm saying? That's like a super development area, like hearing feelings, because I'm facts. I'm that one, when you tell me I did something, when I do that, tell me when I did that. When it's not true, I didn't do it at all, but she's trying to express a feeling and maybe she can't express it. But now I'm caught up in the facts, because now you attacking my character now, and now my ego's involved, rather than, okay, you know what? That's not what she's saying. Let me sit back and let me hear what she's feeling. That's some difficult shit to do. That's difficult for a man that grew up with a woman, let alone one that didn't. You know what I mean?
No, that's true.
And that's not, and granted, that is not her fault that my experience and my upbringing was. So I can't grow up penalizing every woman for my experience, but then on the same time, you can't judge me for experience that you haven't bothered to find out about and tell me how I should feel and who I should view in a certain way, when my traumas come from what I'm looking at right now. You see what I mean? And that's hard.
I get it. But in your reality, and you accepting the fact that because you were raised that way, it is difficult for you to move on an emotional level versus a fact-based level, that is where you're going to find yourself bumping heads with women, not, black, white, whoever. Because I know, like for me, I've always been a giver. I'm always looking out for the other. Now that I told y'all, I'm in the season of me. If it don't serve me, if it don't do nothing for me, I don't give a fuck about it, right? That's where it's going to come into my butting heads with people, because I'm going to look selfish. And I'm okay with that. Just like you're okay with the fact that this is how you feel. But because I'm okay with it, doesn't make it right. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And I acknowledge that I'm going to have to find a way and a happy balance. But I don't want to go through. Listen, I did some shit in my 20s and my 30s that I'm not willing to do in my 40s. I'll be 40 in 4 months.
I see it.
Yeah. I've been through some things. I've allowed some things. I've accepted some shit. Yeah. And I'm not interested in it.
But you don't look like what you've been through, friend.
Hello? That's it. Even with this situation.
With the shoulder out.
Hello.
Out.
Hey.
But even with all that, and I refuse to succumb to it. You know what I'm saying? But I can't allow it. I won't allow it to dictate what next, but I have to allow it to help me navigate what next, because I'll be back in that same situation.
That's
Do
it.
you see what I'm saying? So to a man who's gonna say to me, "What's good? Where you at? Come through if you want to." I'm gonna just be like, in my opinion, I have to tell myself I'm better than that. And it's not no shade to him for feeling that way. It's just that I require something different. To the homegirl that want to call me and dump all her shit on my plate without even acknowledging I got my own shit. And no shade to you. I just probably won't be answering the phone. People gonna feel a kind of way about it, like they feel about you. They could think you're egotistical, misogynistic, mean, bossy, whatever they want to think, but they don't know what you've been through.
Is that what they say?
Is
that the word on the street? Shit.
Even if they felt that way, Jason, I don't feel that way about it. You know what I'm saying?
Because that shit rolled off your tongue I'm like, damn.
They all go, motherfucker, they all go hand in hand. You know that.
But I'm about to go sleep in the fetal position tonight. Like,
come on, bring it in. Come on. But no, I'm just saying they can feel what they want to feel about you. That don't change what has happened to bring you to this point. And it doesn't change who you really are. It's caring. You know what I'm saying? Your confidence comes off as egotistical. It's not. Because you're just as kind and sweet and thoughtful. You know what I mean?
Don't. You can't be telling the public that.
Well, so you be telling you an asshole when you pick one.
No, I don't. Yeah. But so and so here, like where I struggle is kind of like you get into that place where you can say like, hey, this is what I'm accountable for. These are the areas that I need to grow and stuff like that. But then it's kind of like it's hard. And I'm not saying that women aren't accountable. It's just hard for a lot of men to find those. Because I always ask this question when someone says, oh, you're misogynistic. And then I say, well, then tell me what the opposite of misogynistic is. And then we can have a conversation. And
I get it.
You see what I'm saying? It's kind of like, because when a viewpoint doesn't fit a female or a maternal narrative, because you're telling me how I'm supposed to think, right? If I disagree with anything from a female narrative, it's like, oh, well, see, that's why y'all fucked up, and y'all, it's like, you need to change the way you think. Like, why? Because, and it's like I said, the revelation that I came from before is I don't need every woman to change their point of view, just like you don't need every man to, because I'm only looking for one. You see what I'm saying?
Let me tell you, at the rate you go on, the only one that matters is the one that's going to come over with that statement. Okay,
right? And hold
on to her. Yeah.
And it's about, well, like, I mean, listen, we have these conversations. No. It's like real shit. We have these conversations, but real shit. When I say, hey, come through if you want to, they typically, if they want to come through, they come through. We don't have that conversation when I say, no one has ever said, oh, well, I don't like that. Let's like, come through if you want. Or the ones like, oh, I hate texting. I am a texter, and my phone is full of texts from people, right. And like, so it's like we say these things, but I'm like, I feel like when you truly feel a certain way about a person, all that shit that you talk, like my daddy is a neat freak, like OCD more so than me. People call me OCD. You was about to fix your lips to say it. But he has literally stopped dating women because they leave cups or paper towels around her. It drives him nuts. But then there was this one woman that came through and he liked her. And I was like, it has nothing to do with her being messy or not tidy. It has everything to do with what you feel about her. I was like, because when one come through and you like her, you look at that cup and be like, oh, that's cute. Look at her little cup over there. Let me get it for her. You know what I'm saying?
Pretty much.
But that's like we said at the beginning. You accept shit. You look over shit that you normally wouldn't entertain when you feel like there's potential.
Or are those things truly as big a problem as we try to make them up in our head to be? Because they're only akin to, because like keep it a buck. If a dude you was really feeling, like say y'all kicked it a few times and you just love spending time with him and stuff like that, and he hit you up and was like, hey, come through if you want, like you're not gonna go through. He don't mean nothing, but he not being disrespectful. You like, hey, I love spending time with him. I'm gonna go through, you're gonna go through. And just like if I hear a woman saying something and she's not saying what she really feeling, if I'm really, really feeling her, I'm gonna be like, so what I'm hearing you say is, you know what I mean? Like we talk all this shit about found. Right, but no, we talk all this shit about what we not gonna put up with and what we not gonna do, blah blah blah, until we start feeling somebody else and we right back. You know what I'm saying? Which is how we end up in toxic situations. So it actually comes full circle. You know what I mean? Like, because my original question is, how do we end up there? This is part of it. Like, we start ignoring the shit that we originally say we not gonna do, or you know what I mean? Because they got some new, they look cute in them jeans, or whatever the hell is attracting us to this person.
Right. But
And
to
I
your
feel
point, there are levels, right? So there are some
absolutely.
things that we might be, you know, really hard about, and then we meet somebody and it's like, oh, it's not a big deal. And then there's some things that are just a big deal. And so I think where the toxic part comes in is when you are ignoring things that consistently hurt you or make you feel uncomfortable, or things that you can't even talk about. Like, I feel like if it's a situation that you can't tell your friends about because you're embarrassed or you feel some kind of like, that's it right there. That whole,
That's a huge red flag.
right. So there are, I definitely understand what you're saying. And that does happen. Because I was sitting here thinking like, none of this stuff matters to me anymore because this is not my experience.
The broom. Right.
I don't care. Come through if you want. I'm already there. Like, I don't, even if you don't want to see me, hey, here I am. So it's like, whatever. But somebody talking to you like you got two heads, right? That's something different than something like that. So I think that is what you're talking about. Yeah, the little cup on the counter. Now, I guess something like that, especially if you are a complete neat freak and you wind up in a long-term relationship or you get married, that is going to come back around again as you merge your spaces. But again, that's not on the same level as some of the things that we're talking about. Somebody that, consistently talks down about you or maybe puts you in harm's way, is the harm. Somebody that might be involved in some criminal activity and could get you caught up. Like there's a whole nother level of stuff that, you could be dealing with in these relationships, and you choose to look past it because, I love him. Like, girl.
And that's far-fetched too. Sometimes you don't have to, love could be gone. Love don't live here no more. You could be just in a space of comfort. Yeah. And like I said, it could be fearful. It could be like just stressful because you just don't know what it looks like. Even leaving a job, moving to Vegas, I left a really good job that I worked hard to get. I struggle with that. You know what I mean? Because I knew my stability. I knew what was coming next. Every 2 weeks, I could count on that bonus. I knew I could take off time and fuck off on the clock. You know what I'm saying?
And why did this Proud Mary come in my head when you say that? That's all I can hear now. Left a good job in the city.
You're a clown.
Working for the man. And hold on.
No, for real.
That's right. Yeah, had arm movement.
You gotta get that.
Absolutely. But that's real. Like, you just don't know. It's so many things. It's so many different aspects of your life that at some point it's all the same. The same trauma fucks up every aspect of your life. No matter how you look at it, no matter how much of it you allow to seep into your day to day, that same situation, it literally affects every aspect of your life. Your friendships, your family relationships, that nigga, your job. You know what I'm saying? It all boils up into that same situation. And you're like, fuck, what am I doing? And back before when you're younger, you hear your parents say, oh, she'll know when she's tired. She'll leave when she's had enough. It gets to that point where you've had enough with your janky ass boss, a stupid ass homegirl or that nigga. And you're like, you know what? I have to do something different, whether it's for your sanity, your peace of mind, your health. You know what I'm saying? You have to make a decision
because you might kill somebody.
Nigga, forgiveness free.
Right. So yeah. So on that note, we're gonna move into our final thoughts. We're gonna wrap up this very spirited episode.
Because you was lively, you was turned up,
man.
Like
I gotta let us have it. I was like.
Yeah, listen, I gotta
call me and ask me to come over if I want. It is no problem.
I bring food when I come over, so don't do me.
Y'all used to both come bearing gifts.
I know.
So E Diddy, your final thoughts.
I don't know. I just feel like at the end of the day, you just gotta figure your shit out, name it, own it, and that's like you said, accept it. That's the only way you're going to be able to get to that next point. You got to accept it, call a thing, so that you can move past it.
Okay. Dre?
Don't be afraid to leave where you are, because generally something better is waiting for you. I spent a lot of years in some stuff that, if I really sat with it and unpacked it, I probably would be balling. But the fact of the matter is, when I did get sick and tired and was like, I deserve more, I want more, even I need to do more, right? Then more was available for me. And so the things that I had to tell myself, and I've told friends and even family members, is, don't be afraid to let go of that. It sounds Tyler Perry and cliche, but you can do bad by yourself, like for real. Even like definitely my ladies with children that are holding on because like, this is my kid's dad, or who else is going to want me with 2, 3, 4, however many kids, sis, somebody will want you. And if not, you still will be doing better by yourself. Even if better is just peace of mind, there's no price tag that you can put on that. And when you're at peace, then you can probably think. And when you're able to think, then you can strategize, then you can get into motion. But while you're always in turmoil and you're always bogged down and you're sad and you're crying, like, you really can't see, to take the phrase from Barzini, you can't see tomorrow. And so you need to be able to see tomorrow.
Those are the facts.
Right. So I'll end my final thoughts with a short story. This is akin to what Erica was talking about reliving like the cycle and everything else. So the late Dr. Wayne Dyer shared a story about our patterns in life, and there was a assignment that he had given a class about taking an index card and writing out the chapters of their life. And so there was one lady that had written a story, and I'm trying to repeat it as best as possible. But on the first card, it was 5 chapters. She said, chapter 1, I'm walking down the street. There's a big hole. I don't see the hole. I fall in the hole. It takes a long time to get out. Chapter 2, I walk down the same street. There's a big hole. I see the hole. I fall in the hole. It takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3, I walk down the same street. I see the hole. I still fall in the hole. It doesn't take as long to get out. Chapter 4, I walk down the same street. I see the hole. I walk around the hole. I keep walking. Chapter 5, I walk down a different street.
Amen. Come on, chapter 5.
Okay.
And so with that, you guys, this has been another episode, a very spirited, yet another Red Bull. I need to get off these Red Bulls, y'all.
I'm sorry I introduced you to that.
They need to go ahead and sponsor you if you're going to be turned up like that.
It's Dre's fault.
No good. That was good. Good takeaway, Barzini. You did good.
Lord. So, y'all, this has been The Crossroads. Once again, I'm your man, Barzini.
And I'm Dre Renee.
And remember, be free
to be you. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Erica.
Thanks for having me.
We want to thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and register for our email list for more episodes and projects from your hosts, Barzini and Dre Renee. Until next time, this has been the Crossroads Podcast. And remember, be free to be you.